Hello! I love that the 6th grade team is joining us.
What's up, guys?
Hi, Emily.
Hi, good to see you all.
Oh, you guys are awesome. Like, you're not tired enough that that you're doing this. But we're hoping this will help.
Yes.
So for everybody who's just popping in I am presenting my screen already, but in the bottom left-hand corner, if you guys could see, and you can see it on my screen there, that little paper clip that says Google Meet PD, there's an attachment there for a Jamboard, which is what we're going to try to focus on for most of the session. So if you go to that bottom left-hand corner and click on that, it's going to take you to this page where you're going to see the I Spy screen on the front. And if you want to start looking at those first couple of tasks to do for your Jamboard once you open it, and I'm seeing, yep, there's Bob in there.
This is a way for you to see, if you're virtual and you're starting a meeting and you want to get everyone on, and it takes people, some people a little bit to get on, just having an activity for the kids to do. You'll know you have editing access to the Jamboard if you see the tools on the side. If you don't see the tools on the side, then it's a view only.
Yep.
But this gives you a chance to play around with some of the tools. The first one is a marker, and that's what you would write with for the I Spy if you wanted to find some items in the I Spy. It has an eraser, the arrow, and then we'll go through some of the different things like the sticky notes and the images and the shapes and the text boxes.
Yep, but feel free to jump on the I Spy and start.
This is your time to play.
Yeah. If you've never changed your background before or done background blur, you can find all of that good stuff in the more options section, which I'm showing on my screen under change background. It used to say change to blur, but now it says change background. You have a bunch of options there. And the tile view you can find under layout, but since I'm presenting, you'll only see a little bit of that tile view for now. Some of the tools that we're going to be sharing here, we think pretty essential, in case you wind up having students that are at home, or in case we wind up going red. These are the things that can really help out and get kids involved when they're kind of stuck behind the screen. So we hope you find it beneficial. And again, if you are joining us and you're not in the jam, because I see a handful of people in right now, I'll show you on my screen again, the bottom left-hand corner. If you can click on the attachment and go ahead and enter the elementary PD Jamboard content.
And we'll share this resource along with all the other ones. I mean, you're welcome. You have access to it now, just like any Google document. But if you wanted to make a copy of this, we'll give you access to a ton of things in a little bit. So. Yep.
But it's best if you can open that up too, so that you can kind of play along with us once we're up and running here. All right. Now I'm seeing people in there.
All right. Well, we should probably get started because we're videotaping this, and your time is precious. We want to make sure that we stop at 3:20. But we're so glad that you joined us. I know it's a busy time. It's a crazy time. But you guys are amazing, and we're here to help you guys any way we can. So
yeah, and we do want to point out that when we did this session before, it was about an hour-long session. So this is going to be the hyper-speed version of it. So if things come really fast and furious, please don't get overwhelmed. Keep in mind that you can always put in a tech request, and we'll be happy to work one-on-one with you if you have any questions. We are going to use a couple features in Google Meet that'll hopefully answer some questions for you while we're going through this. But it is going to be a little faster than what we've typically done. But hopefully, you're going to get something out of that. So,
and we fully expect if you, as a group, as a grade level, or as a reading specialist, if you want to meet separately to really dive into content, we would love to do that with you. We even had some fun team teaching before Thanksgiving, and it worked out really well. So we're always here to help any way we can.
Cool. So the first thing I'm going to ask you to do is, if you are in the Jamboard, and I'm displaying this on my screen just so you can kind of see that I'm working with two windows here. When you open this Jamboard, it might have opened in a separate tab like this up here. And it's really essential, because our students do it all the time, to understand that if you're using a tool like Jamboard, that we kind of get in the habit of switching between tabs and jumping back and forth. So even for me to have my Jamboard over on this side and then I'm switching back to my Meet over here, that's completely okay. And I'd recommend that you kind of try to do that with us as we go. So I'm going to ask that you kind of, you don't have to close the Jamboard, but that you switch back to the Google Meet screen, because we're just going to preview a couple of the new Google Meet features for those that maybe aren't familiar with them. I'm going to go through them pretty quick. But again, we'll be happy to cover anything along the way. So the first thing I want to show you in the upper right-hand corner, if you haven't seen it yet, there is a new Activities tab that's available in Google Meet. And when you look on my screen here, you see there's 3 activities that you can now add for your students that are remote, and that includes Breakout Rooms, polls, and the Q&A feature. The first one we're going to look at really quickly is the polls one. So if I click on polls, you can see that actually ahead of time I created a poll, which is a really nice feature of it. You can make these ahead of time just by clicking on the create a poll button, and then you have the option to save them and then launch them when you're ready. So I'm going to go ahead and click launch for this poll right now. And on your screen, you should have probably seen a little banner pop up that occurred. And if you missed it, you're still going to be able to go back to the Activities tab in the upper right-hand corner where you'll probably see a little green dot.
Yep, we see it.
And that's going to tell you that there is a poll that's available for you. So now when you go to poll, you're going to be able to just go in and click on one of the options there. Which Google Meet update are you most curious about? And I did show results so that they occur in real time. So anyone that's looking at a poll is going to be able to see who's voting for what. But ultimately, this is just a great formative check for your students, whether it's something about how they're feeling or something about the content from the previous day or anything like that. So
one of the things worth mentioning is we all have Google Enterprise. What does that mean? It means we paid money to get some extra features like Breakout Rooms in Google Meet. If you notice, you don't have the ability. I don't even have the ability right now to create breakout rooms, to create polls or question and answers, because Jonathan was the first one on the Meet. He's the one that has all the power. Now, if that's a good thing, could it be a bad thing? I think Google's still working. Remember, some of this stuff is really in beta form. I think Jonathan what did you find an email today where they're going to do co-moderators. They know that this is an issue, that the first person in with the Google Enterprise account shouldn't always be the one that has all of the access. Now, kids do not have access to this because they do not have accounts. The enterprise accounts go specifically to teachers. So, but you may be co-teaching with someone and you may want both of them to have that access. That should be coming.
Yep. So that's definitely coming down soon. So again, if you're running your Google Meet, you'll have access to all these polls. So I'm going to end the poll right now. And again, you can see on my screen just a big button that says end the poll. And when I do that, what's going to happen at the end of my Meet is I'm going to receive an email with all this information that was on this poll, just in case I wanted it for my own records. Maybe I'm going to run 5 polls during my class. I'll have all that information sent to me in an email. The next thing I want to show you guys is the Q&A feature. So as you can see, I'm going to go back to my Activities tab. And the Q&A is a really awesome feature for a lot of reasons, and I'm just going to talk briefly on why it is. So I'm going to turn that on right now. And again, at the bottom of your screen, you probably saw a little tab. This is what your students would see. It says Q&A is now open. And again, if you missed that little tab, you can always go back up to the activities, and you can click on Q&A, and you're going to see that you can ask a question in the bottom right-hand corner. And the thing I love about Q&A is that after you ask a question, they're all going to appear in the Q&A section, similar to the chat, but you're going to be able to upvote, and your students can upvote questions that are the most relevant. And then as the teacher, you're going to be able to go to the questions, and you can sort by popularity. You can sort by oldest, by newest, by unanswered questions. You can hide questions if you don't think they're relevant or appropriate. And then the best part about the Q&A is that when you are finished with your session, you're going to have an email sent to you with a spreadsheet with all the questions and answers. So just to show you on my screen real quick, I'm going to go to my email. And this is one from our PD session that we did. But this was a Q&A that we had that basically just said, what questions do you have about Google Meet now that we're finished? And I can see who submitted what question, what time they submitted it, and how many upvotes it received. So, we had a really relevant question from Mr. Hazel here that says, why is abbreviation such a long word? He had 6 upvotes there. But we had some people here. Would anyone be interested in making an ELA folder for us to share templates and organizers? 6 people seemed like they were into that. But again, this is just a really nice place that you can kind of keep all these questions. If you don't answer questions with your students at the time, you can always go back to your spreadsheet and say, okay, what questions were asked that we didn't answer? So
and
during
what we did with our in-service is, since we had 6 moderators, they all had question and answers. So we compiled all of them and made a frequently asked question document. So any questions that you have that, you know, are worth, or that will add to that document as well. So that'll be our, you know, running record of things. Another thing to notice is attendance is also another feature that we, that is now included in Google Meet. You will get a report at the end of every meet saying who attended your meet and for how long.
And just so we can keep it rolling, because I know that, you know, we're working on shorter time here, that Q&A, that's going to be open for you. So if at any point during this, you know, little session here, if anything comes to mind, if you're wondering if you can do something, please pop it in the Q&A. And that way we can get you out at 3:20, but we can answer those questions after the session today and email you guys if you have anything specific that we weren't able to address during this session. So at this point, we're going to kind of come back to that Jamboard piece, and we're going to try to spend the next 15 minutes really looking at some content-specific jams that you can use with your students in a remote setting. So I'm going to pull up the I Spy again, the Jamboard. If you are just joining us, just a friendly reminder, you definitely want to be in this jam, and the way you can do that is by going to the bottom left-hand corner of the Google Meet, clicking on the little Google Meet PD paperclip, and going to Attachments. And you can just click on that Elementary PD 2020 Jamboard content attachment, and that way you can join the jam with us right now. So I see Aaron just joined, awesome. And if anybody else didn't get in there, make sure you get in there. And Shelly, I'm gonna turn it over to you for the first couple slides, and it's 2:56, so I think we're okay right now to keep rolling.
Fast as you can. All right, so I won't give you the history of Jamboard, but to me, a Jamboard is most like a Google slide, but the great thing is that you could really collaborate in real time, like you see with the I Spy that we've just done, which is why we did it. Google has Jamboard, which is like a smart board, which is why they created this product. It's relatively new, so that just shows you that it's going to get better. Think about Google Classroom in its earliest, you know, in its earliest phases, how they're going to keep making this better. There are some things we definitely want to add to this, but for now, these are the tools that we have. Jonathan, can you go to slide 2 for us?
Yep, and just so you notice, Shelly asked me to go to slide 2. This isn't like Nearpod or Pear Deck. Your students would want to control this themselves, so I would ask that everybody go to slide 2. This is kind of part of the interaction that you would have with students if you're using Jamboard, where you would kind of tell them, hey, this is where we're at, and yeah, we can all collaborate at the same time, but you want to make sure you tell your students to advance as well.
So there are 3 ways to use a Jamboard. One is just using it and not giving editing rights to everyone else. So you're just basically using it as a whiteboard. We could see this great for math. I can see this more for the K-2 primary when you're doing things like morning meetings, and you don't necessarily want the kids to write all over it. So you can use it to screen share during a live session. Now, when Jonathan went to present, if you go to the 3 dots, you have the option to open a blank jam, and then you have the option to pull a jam that you've already created. So you can do one of those 2 things.
Yeah, I think that's worth showing there.
Yep. They also have backgrounds for your, you know, you can choose background, and I think it has graph paper and things like that. And again, they'll keep improving on this, but yeah, so you can just use it as a whiteboard. You don't need to share the link with kids. You wouldn't have to share it so they have to grab it in the attachment. You would just be sharing your screen with them and sharing it. You can also do what we did, which is class collaboration, and you would do exactly the same way that we did it. We all interact in one jam. We'll show you examples of that. And you can use it as independent work. This is, you can put it into Seesaw. You can put it into Google Classroom. If you create an assignment in Google Classroom, you can make a jam for each student just like you would any other Google product. So there are different ways to use it. We've tested out with K-2 using the iPads. And I'll be honest, there's a lot of work to do. It can be shared through Seesaw. It's an app on the iPads. We used it using the Google Meet app and through Safari, and it was a little clunky. So my suggestion would be to just use it right now for that whiteboard feature, unless you want to try it out. We'd be happy to try that out with you. But to use it more for a whiteboard purpose, I think would be best for now, since you guys have Seesaw, and it's so awesome. But they'll improve, and you'll probably use it more, but for now, I would just keep things simpler for K-2. Jonathan, if you'll take me to the 3rd slide, this shows an example of how I would probably use it as a whiteboard. If you look, it's kind of like Seesaw, where we have the features. It's movable, the partly sunny, the rainy, the snowy. I added images, we added clip art. So you and your students, if you wanted to share this with them, they could interact. If you wanted to make it their own activity, you can do that as well. The next slide, slide 4, is very similar. This is a calendar example where you would pull the months and the days, and you can talk about different things as you would if you were using a regular calendar. So those are some ways that you can use it using the whiteboard feature. Jonathan's going to go through some math examples to show you how you can use it for math.
Cool. So we're on slide 5 now. And if I could just pick on 2 people that might be in this slide, I'm going to go with Bob because I see him first, and Emily. So I'm going to go to the number of the day, and let's just say I assign this to my students and I decide today's number is going to be 20. So I'm going to ask that, actually, you know what, there's enough squares. If anyone else wants to jump in too, you can just see these blank spaces here. You know, show with coins and bills. You can go ahead and take your mouse and go to the select tool, and you can start grabbing coins and bills. If you want to go to the text box tool, you can go ahead and just create a text box in any of these text boxes that are in the image, and you can just start, you know, responding exactly as you want. So ultimately, for, you know, even this math example, you would make a copy of this slide that we're looking at for all of your students, and each student would, you know, get one of the slides. You might say to them, all right, write your name at the top of a blank slide, and then go in and complete the number of the day organizer. And again, if your students are at home, this is something they can do. They're each working on their own slide. And in real time as the teacher, you're jumping between all those slides and just checking, or maybe after the time that they're working on it, you can say, all right, we're going to start sharing. Who wants to share their slide? Let's go to Bob's slide on number 5. Everyone go to slide number 5. We can see what Bob did, and you can kind of respond that way.
And do you see Bob's little face? You could see that Bob is moving the nickels. You know, you can see the little, it almost looks like a little, like a place mark above, so that you can see who's actually doing it. Aaron asked a great question, which is one of the things that we want an update for Google for Jamboard. How do you ensure the students can't move the background? So a trick to do that, and we have that information later, is to put a text box over the whole thing, like the part that you don't want moved, so it kind of sets it in place. We're hoping that once Jamboard releases some updates, that has to be the feature that everybody's asking for, is to lock certain things. But right now, a hack would be to create a big old text box over it so that it doesn't move.
Yeah. And keep in mind, you know, students can always find ways to kind of mess with it, but more often than not, we find that, you know, with something like this might be a warm up that you do for the first couple minutes of class. And, you know, it's such a rapid fire thing that, you know, if a student really wants to mess with it or not do it, they don't have to. But more often than not, you'll get your students that are behind their computer screen that are more reluctant to maybe share or speak. But when they see something like this, it's like, okay, I can start doing that. I can start playing with things. I can start using all the tools available. So just jumping ahead, we're on slide 6 right now. This was just kind of the same concept. It's got some algebraic equations here. So we're not going to really dive into this one too much, but same concept. It's ultimately just a screenshot that was taken. And then using the add image button and just dragging that right into our Jamboard. And now students can use the text boxes or write directly on it. So that's all that is on slide 6. Slide number 7, I'm going to ask that everybody goes there. And I'm not going to pick on anyone in particular, but I'm going to ask that if anyone wants to. I'd love for you to attempt to label the cell structure here using any tools that you want. And that's something I want to kind of show off here, is the fact that, you know, we just have an image of this cell. And let's say I would make a copy, and maybe I would make 5 copies of the slide and tell kids in groups of 4 to go ahead and label the cell structure. You can do this a lot of different ways. You know, we could take a sticky note, and I'm going to go ahead and just start throwing something up here. And maybe we're going to use the pen tool and say, okay, I'll draw an arrow like that. You know, you can use,
jump in, and you can
use text boxes. You can do, you can use shapes. But the whole point of this is that it's fairly, that's an excellent labeling job there, Bob. You can see that there's just a lot of different ways to do it. And really, that's kind of the point of it, is that there's nothing mind-blowing or fancy here, but it's going to create kind of an opportunity for students to be interactive. And again, you could have 5 kids on one slide here, or you could assign each one their individual slide, but at least they're getting to do something during this, you know, possibly remote experience for them.
And maybe that's worth mentioning, Jonathan, that little care under the slides up top. If you hit that little arrow underneath, that's going to show you, you can see what people are on each slide. So,
So yeah, it's cool. I can see Lindsay's on slide 6.
Do
And
things like, you know, museum walks. And this is also with the 3 dots. Go ahead and click those 3 dots so you can show them this is how you duplicate or delete slides.
Yep. So if we would make this slide and say, wow, I really like this cell slide, we can duplicate it 20 times if we want. And that way, when I share this with my students, I'll say, okay, I might have 20 kids in the class. Each of you jump on a blank slide and start working. Or maybe I say, get in pairs and use the sticky note to claim a slide or something like that. And then students can pretty much go in, pick their own. And then as the teacher, when I'm ready to monitor, I just pull that up and I'm like, okay, who's where? And I can jump to slides and kind of see how everybody's doing. All right, I want to make sure that we have enough time here, so I know we're moving quick, but we're going to keep going. I'm going to jump to slide 8 really quick just to share this, and then Shelly, I'm going to turn it over to you for slides 9 through 11. So this is just, we're on slide number 8 right now. This is just another example of kind of the labeling process, but you know, this one's a little bit different. In this case, the thing that I like about this activity is that it's essentially, and I'm going to show you this example here, it can be done in a lot of different ways. So we have just this empty human body here, and someone could use the drawing tool, they can use the sticky notes, kind of hard to see up here, but you know, some students went and actually found images of things like lungs, heart, that they could just drag and drop into it, because really it's not about, you know, how good your drawing skills are or where you're finding it. It's about, you know, knowing the content here, which would be labeling the human body, and it doesn't really matter how kids do it as long as they get the content. So just another way to do it, but for the sake of time, we're gonna keep rolling. So Shelly, I'll turn it over to you for slide number 9.
And going back to that, think about, you could even have kids work in pairs. You can say, you know, these 2 kids are going to work on slide 7. Another thing is right now you can only have 20 slides. So I know some of you have more than 20 kids, which makes things such a pain. But right now you can only have up to 20 slides. So you can split some of your slides in half if you had to, or you can work collaboratively. That example that Jonathan just showed you, we found off Twitter. We've been finding a lot of stuff just by going to Twitter and typing in Jamboard to get all these ideas. And that was one of them. And they talked about how they did a museum walk after everyone was done. So you went back and you could see the kids looking at each other's work. So just another idea to make you know, a virtual environment more collaborative. This one, number 9, is an example of just using map skills, using your tools like labeling and coloring to just, you know, go through some. This is a World War I map activity. We have a teacher at the high school. She's a social studies teacher, and she wanted to learn how to use this, and she used it so quickly. It was like on the fly when they were read that she was able to pull this up. She also used Google Draw, and she was already using Google Draw to create stuff, and then she was able to import all that stuff to use for social studies. So I could totally see social studies being used through Jamboard, having people collaborate and, you know, label. It's a great way to do that. So I'll move on to 10 for now. And 10 is very similar, using a timeline. So you can create the timeline and you can give the different facts, and then kids can work in groups or individually to kind of put things in order for themselves. They can be the ones that create the timeline. You see, we're using sticky notes. We're using the shape or the drawing feature. We added images to it. You know, this is a way that we can have it interactive for kids, as you know, and it doesn't just have to be social studies. It could be, you know, language arts. It could be the timeline of a story. So there's a lot of ways that you can use this. Slide 11, is that you or me? I think slide 11 is just an example that we found on Twitter, and it's basically kind of like a Google slide. It doesn't look much different, but it is, you know, a poster that you can add. You can have the kids add the background. You could add images and kind of create a mini slide that you all can share together.
Yeah, and regardless of your content, it's just, you know, it's an interactive poster maker. Hey guys, here's what we're studying today. You have 5 minutes to create an interactive poster with at least 10 facts. And Jamboard is a great place that each kid has their own space to do that. All right, so jumping ahead, I'm on slide 12 right now. And again, I know we're moving quick, but we're going to try to get done with this slideshow part at 3:15 so we could just end then with a quick look at the breakout rooms. But slide 12, what we're on right now, this is just another example of taking a screenshot of something and then adding in some directions. So here we have text annotation. Jamboard's awesome for annotation. I could have 5 students working on this. Say, all right, find me every example of simile, metaphor, hyperbole, personification. You can go to the pen tool. There's all the different colors there. So if we find something. If we find a simile, we can circle it. We can, put it in blue, and kind of just work through the text annotation features here. Moving to slide 13. This also works really well for graphic organizers. I really like this Frayer model vocabulary piece, because you could basically set up this slide 20 times and you could have an entire word list as a class and have students maybe in pairs or trios or quads work through certain words. They can go in, they can, whoops, there's Grammarly. Sorry about that. There we go, coming back. There it is. So yeah, we can go in, we can pick up our word.
You can put images. Were you sick of that one?
Yeah. So we can go in and we can go in and edit this. We can change this however we want. But basically, your entire class can be working on this in groups at the same time, whether they're home, whether they're at school. And then when you're done, you can make a copy of this entire piece and you could give it to your students in Google Classroom and say, all right, hey, we've got a study guide now for all the words. And like Shelly said, you could add images, GIFs, whatever you want, and basically just work through it like that. Let's go to 14. This is just it's similar to the poster one that we looked at. But this one here, let's say we take a book and we just kind of say, all right, we're going to just brainstorm off of this here. Maybe you just add a bunch of slides of the book that you're studying. Maybe you add the setting, character, theme, point of view, style, conflict, but kids just go to town. Pretty much almost like you can make like a mind map type setup. This is how students could take notes. It's really just up to you how you want to use it. We're going to go ahead to slide 15. Again, I know we're moving quick, but this is one that we used for foreign languages, but ultimately taking a bunch of the shape features. And again, students could go in and grab their own shapes, or as a teacher, I could pull up a shape like this and I could copy it and just start going to town and pasting a bunch and saying, all right, go ahead and create a character using all these shapes, resize them, reformat them, make something and label it correctly using our vocabulary. Again, we were using this for foreign language. So I might say, okay, that's the eyes of my robot. So I'm going to draw an arrow here that just says those are the ojos. And again, it's one of those things, you're just getting kids involved. They're actually working and creating things on the slide during your instruction. All right, moving ahead to 16. This is just a GIF that we put in here. Worked with Wendy Hoyer at the high school she was asking us, because of all the COVID regulations, it's really hard to do station rotation. So what we did is we kind of created a station rotation in Jamboard where students would get assigned their own jam with maybe a group of 6 other students. And then they would work with those 6 students through a 6-slide jam that had different stations in each one there. So the students in that group, even though they were all remote, were working through their own Jamboard with their group, going through the station, going through, the labels and the sticky notes, and basically working through the text and rotating every 10 minutes. And they were doing that all virtually. So again, just another way to kind of think about instruction that you would normally do, but you're limited to because of the pandemic. So Shelly, I'm going to turn it over to you for the last part here. Great. It's 3:13, so I feel like we have a good 2 minutes to wrap this up, and then we'll do breakout. Great.
So, these tools are new to us too, and we like tech, but we never did virtual learning. You guys were actually probably did it before we did. So, it's been cool to be in classrooms because it gives us virtual classrooms because it gives us the opportunity to test out these things. Mandy Myers, right before break, we collaborated with her and we did Jamboard groups and digital breakouts. And it was really fun to be able to use these tools with a class. We know how, we got a really good feel for how things are for you guys. And it was great to use some of these tools. So one of the things we did, and I'm going to share my screen, is we did a Thanksgiving Jamboard. And I'm going to share my screen now. Wait.
I just stopped presenting.
Okay. There we go.
Cool, we see it.
You see? So we did just like we did today. We did the I Spy. And then the second slide was, what were we thankful for? So we got the kids into breakout rooms and we did this. So we did a sticky note activity, and this was a great way to get the kids started on how to use a jam, just playing around. The third slide was really fun. Again, we had small groups that we played Pictionary, and the kids took turns drawing their favorite Thanksgiving food item. And then we took this turkey and they were building a turkey. And Canva, for those of you that use Canva, we have some information that we'll email you about Canva EDU. It's a step up from Canva. You have your own little classroom that you can assign things to. And once you have Canva EDU, you have access to all the clip art and you're able to download it with a transparent background. So that's what I did. I downloaded a bunch of clip art and they were able to build their own turkey. And if you can see, so this was a class, I believe it was a smaller class, but they were each able to go on and build their own turkey. And because it was such a hit, we're already in the process of kind of doing the same thing for winter and sending it out to all of you where they're building their own snowman. So there are some really fun ways to use Jamboard. We will have everything in, we've been collecting things. I am a big firm believer of why make it when there are educators that are sharing it. We often go to Twitter because don't forget, there are educators around the world that have been going virtual a lot, like full time. So they're creating a lot of this stuff and they're sharing. So in this folder, we have the templates that we find, the templates that we shared with you today are all going to be found in here and we'll keep adding to it. Another thing we also have is, like I said, we started using Canva EDU last week. So those calendar manipulatives that we showed you, we have everything here. If you wanted to create your own, again, just use ours and make a copy of it. But there's some great, like Mr. Potato Head, and there's our snowman. We'll continue to add stuff there. One of the things we didn't talk about, and this would be good for our counselors, when you do, sometimes you do a check-in with the kids, some of the fun ones that we found, there's some hysterical ones, but on a scale of cat, how are you feeling today? Or on a scale of dog, how are you feeling today? Celine Dion, some of these make me laugh so hard, but Baby Yoda. So we can keep adding to that as well, because you could add that to Jamboard and you can, with your kids, they can, use a sticky note and then move it to where you want them to move it. So these are just some ways. It's going to keep getting, I think Google's going to keep adding to it, but I think that there's a lot of potential using Jamboard. So I'm going to stop sharing because we only have 3 minutes.
All right, yeah. So we're going to
breakout rooms.
So we're going to make sure you guys get out of here. So really, we're just showing you we just want to show you this before we go. I'm just going to present for one last time here. And we're just going to do a 30-second breakout room. So on my screen right now, just so you can see it, if you've never used breakout rooms, it's probably one of the best features of Google Meet, especially when you have students that are home or if they wind up going remote. So in our activities tab, if you click on breakout rooms, you can go ahead and click set up breakout rooms, and I can make as many rooms as I want. So I'm just going to make it so I have groups of, that looks good. Looks like I have groups of 2. I could set a timer here, and I'm going to end breakout rooms in exactly 1 minute, but I'll probably bring you back even sooner. So we'll just make it 1 minute breakout rooms, and I'm going to hit open rooms, and you're going to be able to unmute yourselves and just real quick think, pair, share. How would you use this with your class? How would you use any of the tools that we just saw? Then we're going to bring everybody back, and we'll just kind of end exactly in 1 minute here at 3:19. So I'm going to open up rooms, and away we go. Lindsay, Kathy, I don't know if I got you in a room or not. If you can hear me, give me a sign of life. No sign of life. For those of you watching at home, you can see that breakout rooms are ending in 20 seconds, right up here at the top. If I wanted to end the rooms immediately, I could go ahead and go to close rooms now. I could also edit the rooms at any point, and I could join in any of the rooms just by clicking the join button. So poor Lynn is in this room by herself. If I saw that a student was by themselves, I could easily just drag them into another room, or I could wind up pretty much just returning everybody to the main room as well. So you can start to see on my screen, everyone's coming back. The timer has ended. People are slowly returning back to the main room. All right, and just for my people that are slowly entering the room again, if you've done breakout rooms before, can you give me a thumbs up just because I'm curious if you've used it before? Okay, and if this is new to you, give me a, no, don't do that. You don't have to do that. I really was curious because when our high school, when we went red, it was something that our teachers after like day 2 were like, we need something to get, kids talking because everybody just muted their screens and you didn't get anything out of it. So breakout rooms really does, even for your students that are a little more reluctant to share and speak out. I know it's different at the elementary. I think kids are a little more enthusiastic about doing it, but breakout rooms really does for the kids that are a little more nervous and kind of thinking, I don't know if I want to share. When they get in that breakout room with 1 or 2 other kids, then it's blah, 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 blah. And that's what you want sometimes. So it's 3:20. I just realized that, and we have to make sure that we do.
I know we did okay, but I know that there are still some questions and you probably want to explore, and that's when we can meet. We could do grade levels. We can, anytime this was just a taste. You want to dive in deeper, look at content. We have counselors here. We have reading specialists. We have such a variety, and we're here to help you any way we can. So we're going to share, once we get this recording, we'll send it to you along with a bunch of resources, but know that you are not on your own on this. We are all together. We'd be willing to team teach with you, meet with you, whatever you need. We're here for you. We'll get through this together. So thank you.
If that was overwhelming, we apologize again. That was an hour and something session condensed.
Right.
So if it was rapid fire, we know. But yeah, don't hesitate to reach out if you saw something you liked and you're like, hey, we want to explore that more. Just reach out and we'll be happy to work with you. So.
You guys are awesome. Have a great night. Yep. Thanks so much.
Take care. Thanks, guys.
Yeah.